Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to build the ultimate guide to effective learning. We're breaking down the entire educational experience into its core parts, and by the end, you'll see education not just as a single thing, but as a complete, living ecosystem.
So let's kick things off with a huge question, one that pretty much every student, teacher, and professional has asked themselves. Is there some kind of magic formula, a secret sauce for making learning actually stick?
Well, it turns out there is no single magic bullet. The real answer is thinking of it as an ecosystem. See, truly effective learning happens when four key pillars are working together in harmony: the teacher, the activity, the learner, and the situation. When you get these four things right, you create an environment where knowledge can seriously thrive.
So, here's the game plan for today. We're going to walk through each of these pillars one by one. We'll start with the learner, the real heart of the whole process. Then we'll look at the teacher, and finally, the activity and the situation they create. Oh, and you're going to want to stick around because at the end, we'll reveal the one crucial skill that ties this entire ecosystem together. All right, let's jump right in, and we're going to start with the person at the absolute center of it all, the learner. Because let's be honest, if we don't get how people actually receive information, how can we ever hope to teach them effectively?
Okay, so the big idea here is something called a learning style. And this is really important. It's not about how smart you are. Not at all. It's just about the unique way your brain prefers to take in and make sense of the world. You can kind of think of it as your brain's native language.
One of the most popular ways to think about this is the VAK model. Visual learners, they get the most out of seeing things, like charts or watching someone do something. Auditory learners, they thrive on listening. Think lectures and group discussions. And kinesthetic learners, they've got to get their hands dirty. They learn by doing. Now, the point isn't to box yourself in, but to know your own preference. It's a tool that helps you find the best way to learn for you.
Okay, so we've got the learner down. But what about the person guiding them? Let's switch gears to our second pillar, the teacher. A teacher is so much more than just a source of facts. They're the architect of the entire learning experience.
Generally, you can sort teaching styles into two main camps. First, you have the classic teacher-centered model. You know the one, the sage on the stage, where the teacher holds all the knowledge and delivers it to students who just sit there and listen. But then there's the more modern, student-centered approach. Here, the teacher is more of a guide on the side, helping students actively discover knowledge for themselves. And wow, this table really lays it all out, doesn't it? In a teacher-centered room, everything flows from the top down. The teacher makes the rules, the teacher enforces discipline. But in a person-centered classroom, leadership is shared, and discipline, it becomes something you learn for yourself, not just something that's imposed on you. It's all about building responsibility.
And these pictures, they just perfectly capture the vibe of each approach, right? On one side, you've got information flowing in just one direction, passively. On the other, you see this dynamic, collaborative energy. One is about listening. The other is about creating and problem-solving together.
But of course, in the real world, it's not so black and white. The best teachers have a whole toolbox of styles. You've got the classic authority-style lecturer, the demonstrator, who's more like a coach, and then the facilitator and delegator who really lets students take charge. Honestly, the most effective teachers use a hybrid approach, mixing and matching to fit what they're teaching and who they're teaching it to.
But here's the thing. You can have the best teacher and the most motivated learner in the world, and things can still fall flat. Why? Because they don't exist in a vacuum. The what and the where are just as important. And that brings us to our next two pillars, the activity and the situation.
So there's been this huge shift in modern teaching. We've realized that the best learning activities are active, not passive. The goal isn't for students to just memorize a bunch of facts for a test. It's about developing real-world skills, like how to solve tricky problems and work well with others.
A fantastic example of this is the flipped classroom. You might have heard of it. The idea is brilliant in its simplicity. It literally flips the traditional model on its head. The passive part, like listening to a lecture, that becomes homework. So now the precious time you have in class can be used for the active part, working on projects, solving problems, with the teacher right there to help you out. And when you think about it, the benefits are just huge. Students get to take control, learning at their own speed. Class time becomes this collaborative, hands-on workshop. So instead of being stuck on a tough problem alone at home, you're tackling it with your classmates and your teacher. It's just a way smarter use of everyone's time.
Okay, so we've got the learner, the teacher, the activity, and the situation, all these moving parts. So how do we make them all work together? That brings us to our final section, and the single skill that holds this whole ecosystem together.
Because when you strip everything else away, what are we left with? It's communication. That's it. Every single interaction in this ecosystem, whether it's from a teacher to a student or from one student to another, is an act of presenting and receiving information. The quality of that connection, well, that changes everything.
And this is where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. Check out this research on what actually makes a message believable. You'd think it's the words you use, right? Nope. Turns out, our words only account for a tiny 7% of the impact. A staggering 93% comes from everything else, our body language and our tone of voice. It's really not what you say, it's how you say it.
So, what does this all mean for us? It gives us a clear 4-step formula for being a better communicator, whether you're teaching a class or giving a presentation at work. It all starts with preparation. You do your homework, you master your knowledge. That foundation builds real confidence, which in turn gives you the control to deliver your message with serious impact.
So, we come back to our original question. What's the real secret to effective learning? It's understanding that it isn't one simple thing. It's a dynamic, interconnected ecosystem. And by thinking about the learner, the teacher, the activity, and the situation, you now have the framework, the map, to create way better learning experiences for yourself and for the people around you. The only question left is, how are you going to use it?